Moin Moin and welcome to Ralfs Foto-Bude and Ralfs Fotoflug. Yeah, when you watched my last videos you may have seen my gimbal under the Phantom 2 Vision, and some of you asked if I may explain what I've done and how I installed the gimbal, and yes, that's what I want to do. So this is the gimbal. I want to start the Phantom now so you see how this will work, and I will show you some limitations and give you some advices. When you start the vision, it takes a few seconds before the gimbal gets in position. Here we are, now he's in position. When you watched my older videos, you may have seen that I have the channel 7, the tilt function here on the remote control, and this will work also with the gimbal, so I can show you how the camera moves downward and upwards. So let's see if we can get a picture here on the iPad. Let's go to the Phantom. Here we are, and then we should have the picture here. Hope it will work. Takes a second. Yes, here we are. And now I can show you how the gimbal works. Here we are. When you move the Phantom, you see the picture is quite stable because the gimbal makes the movement, or not makes the movement, but holds the camera still even when I move the vision, and the same in this direction. So here we see it works also in this direction. So that's the advantage of the gimbal. When the Phantom 2 Vision came out, we had only the gimbal in this direction, only in one direction. As you may have recognized, about 2 weeks ago, a week ago, there is the Phantom 2 Vision Plus, and this one had a 3D gimbal. So the problem is, if you have a normal vision, now you have several choices. First of all, you fly the vision like it is, only with a one direction gimbal. Second choice, you sell the vision and buy a Vision Plus, then you have a 3D gimbal. Or the next option is you invest some money and put a 2D gimbal on the vision. There are several companies who offer a complete set where you can change the camera and the gimbal, not the camera, but where you can put the vision camera in and change it very easy. One of this is Drone Experts from Netherlands, and another one is Rotopixel from Canada. They sell this stuff. I don't know, I've never seen it works perfect. I've only seen some videos of the Drone Expert with some jello and some shaking, and I haven't seen very good videos of the, or haven't seen lots of videos of the Rotopixel. So I don't know how this will work. We will see this in the next week, because Rotopixel starts selling this stuff now, and we will see. If you decide to put an own gimbal under the vision, first of all, it's a little bit tricky, so you have to do some installation, you have to take some time, because to get the stuff jello free and shaking free, it's not as easy as it looks like. So there's a little work to do. I will show you today what you have to do. I will show you how you have to do this in the software to make the configuration of the board. There's a board of the who makes the configuration of the gimbal, and there you have to configure the two gimbal motors, the brushless motors, and you have to configure how the speed of the gimbal is and stuff like this. So it's a little bit tricky, but in my opinion it's worse because it's a not cheap option, but it's an option which is not so expensive, and if you do it like me, you can rebuild it. So you can rebuild it to the original vision, and you can sell this as an original vision, so that's not the problem to rebuild it and to go back to the original vision version. And one of the points for me was that I want the original camera, not to mod the camera, and that's one reason when you see here we have there's a limit of the direction this way, because here these two ears are still on the camera, and you may see when I go too further, the camera hits the top of the holder, and that's it. So that's one limitation. You can do this better. You can lower the camera a little bit. So you may have the option to put here at this space, you can move the camera a little bit more downwards, and so you have some options to optimize this whole stuff. But as I said before, it's a little bit work. It's not out of the box. You have to take your time. You have to work on it. First, when I get the first gimbal, it was this gimbal. It's a carbon gimbal. It's a little bit more expensive than this China gimbal. The advantage is you have exactly the same holder size of the original Phantom. That's the original Phantom size, and so they fit perfect together. But after a week, I didn't get success with this one. I had jello, I had shaking. I don't know, I think the top plate of this stuff is too soft, and so you have a little bit shaking, and so yeah, I can use this one for GoPro and handheld GoPro gimbal, I think, but it wasn't working for the Vision. The next very important point when you work on the Vision and you install the gimbal, please use some new propellers, because the propellers are very, very important, because if you have propellers which are not perfectly balanced, you will have the problem that you have very, very few vibrations in the whole chassis, and these vibrations will go to the gimbal and to the camera, and so you will have shaking, you will have jello. So please use very, very good balanced propellers. I used the new one when I installed the gimbal and worked with new ones. Next problem is to find out where the vibrations are coming from, and where the vibrations are. You have to install the whole stuff, and then you have to go in the air, and you have to hover just in front of you, and you have, during the flight, you have to feel at the vision where the vibrations are coming from. So it's a little bit, in my opinion, it's a little bit dangerous, because you fly very close to your face, so you have to be very, very careful. But that's the only way you can see where the vibrations are coming from when you're when it stands on the table or something like that. You have to go in the air and have to check it. And even if you have the perfect situation while hovering, you may have the problem that you fly and you will have shaking and you will have minor vibrations. With this one, I'm very good balanced. When I'm in the air, I almost never have shaking or have jello effect. The only situation is where I have a little bit problems is when I hover very high and it's strong winds, and the wind causes a little bit vibration and the camera starts shaking in the gimbal a little bit. But you can solve this problem and just fly a little bit left or right or front or back, and then the shaking is away. So that's the one thing you have to know. You have to make your experiments, and you have to get perfect and more perfect all the way up when you have installed the gimbal. One very important thing is when you work on the gimbal, you have these cable which goes into the vision camera, and one very important advice: do not move the cable in out during the vision is on. I have done this several times, and it several times worked perfect, and at one time it doesn't work perfect. I had a short circuit on my on the main board of the camera of the vision, and the main board is dead. So I have to change the main board. It's about 60 euro, I don't know, maybe $60 or something like that. This so my very important advice: don't move the cable of the vision camera while the vision is on. You may get a short circuit on the main board. There are several clients or several pilots who had the same problem, and they shut up their main board. So that's a very important advice. When you work on the camera and on the cable, please shut off the vision, and then you can do it. Okay. So these are the first important information to the gimbal, and in the next step I will show you the steps what to do and how to install the gimbal. So that's not quite difficult, so I will show you step by step what you have to do. Okay, so in the next step we have to remove the original camera from the vision. It usually is under this plate. There's the camera under the holder, and on the side of the camera you have there's a small plastic part. I have this one here. This small plastic part, you have to peel it out with a screwdriver and to loosen the screw here. And when you loosen the screw, you can remove the camera. It sits a little bit on the other side, so you have to open up a little bit the camera, and then it will come down. Then you have to remove the dampers here. Take off the cable which goes to the main board, then you can remove this whole stuff, and then the only last part is here the holder, which is under the vision. There are 4 screws you have to open, and then you can remove the holder underneath the vision, and that's it. So you have peeled off the camera and the holder, and the vision is clear of everything. In the next step you have to remove the propellers, and you have to open up the chassis. So remove the propeller first, and then I show you there are 4 screws on each arm of the vision you have to open up, and then you can open the chassis, because you need to open up the chassis for the electronical, for the power connection, and you need to put the channel 7 connection to the board of the gimbal if you want to have the channel 7, so the tilt function of the camera. So underneath the vision there are 1, 2, 3, 4 screws on each arm. 1 is here, that's a very small one, 1, 2 here, and 1 here at the end. And these 4 screws you have to open. And at this side you should cut with a sharp knife the red or blue stripes here, so you can open up the top plate without peeling off the marks here. So in my opinion, it's easier to cut it with a sharp knife, so you can open up each time without peeling off the part here. So that's the next time, and see you again. Okay, so I opened the screws, and now I can remove the top plate of the body. As I said before, cut off here the stripes, so you have not to peel off the stripes. You can leave the stripes where they are, and I think that's much easier. Use a sharp knife and that's it. When you remove the top cover, there are two cables here which goes on top of the cover. This is for the GPS and the antenna. So these are the compass. The compass and the GPS, which goes here up. This one comes down from the compass, and this one is the GPS cable, which is herein. So when you have removed the top plate, there are three cables you have to connect. First of all, that's the power connection, and the power connection is here. We have plus and minus. Plus is red, minus is black. You have to use two-wire cable which goes out here in one of the legs, which goes down to the gimbal. I would use a cable which goes out and use a plug here where you can connect the cable which comes from this main board and which goes to the power connection of the gimbal, so you can remove the gimbal without going here into the on the main board. So that's a little bit easier, but I didn't do so. I worked it directly, so I put the cable here on top and then connected it to the main board of the gimbal. Second part is the channel 7, and the channel 7 comes out here at this point. Here you usually have the cable which comes from the bottom of the camera, from the original gimbal, and this is the cable here. Here we are. This is the original cable, and this one is here at this point here, brown, red, and I don't know, it's not yellow, it's another color, which is here at this point. So you have two options. You can use the end which is at the underneath the Phantom and go from there to the main board of the gimbal, or you can use a new cable which goes here in the NASA box down to the gimbal main board. That's up to you. You have to use a 3-wire cable, and in my package, in my gimbal package, there was a 3-wire cable in, so I can use this one and connected it here to the NASA and connected it to the main board of the gimbal. So that was very easy, so I didn't have to use this one here, but it's easy to find where you have to put it in. It's here in the last connector of the NASA. You will see this one. You will see the cable which comes from underneath the vision from the original gimbal, which goes here. So that's very easy to find, and the only thing is, don't turn it. It may cause a short circuit on the main board of the gimbal. But if you go in the same direction as here, black, red, white, and then go to the main board of the gimbal, that's perfect. I will show you how to connect it to the main board. Power channel 7, and the third one, that's the connector to the camera, because the white cable is too short. You won't reach with a white cable the camera, because as you can see here, the camera is a little bit lower than the original camera. That's also the reason why I use these longer landing legs here. And so you need a longer cable. There are two options. You can buy a earphone cable. That's very important that it's a 4-wire cable and not a 3-wire cable, because usually you get 3-wired cables, and you need a 4-wired cable. As you can see here, you have 4 wires which goes into the main board of the Vision. And another option is you may find in Germany we have an electronic dealer which the name is Conrad, and they have a cable which is configured with a 4-wire, with a perfect 4-wire cable. So it's not a 3-wire cable, but you have the connector here, and you have the cable, and you cut it by length, the length how you need. And so that's, in my opinion, it's a little bit easier, because you have a long enough cable, and you don't have the 30 centimeter or stuff like this here, which is here on the legs when you use the cable, which goes here in, and then in the camera usually it's like 30 centimeters long, and you have to put this cable anywhere on the Vision. So in my opinion, it's easier when you use the new cable and put it here to the Vision main board. You have to check it with the colors. If you have I don't know how you say it's a voltmeter, where you can check which cable has which color and which goes to the different 4 points here on the connector. You have to check this one, because you don't have to turn the cables, but it's very easy to find out. On my internet page, there's a link under the video. On my internet page, you will find some color codes. So I explain which color is at which point here in the original, and so I think you will easily find out the correct connection. Yeah, and that's it. Power, channel 7, and the longer cable for the camera. If you have done this, you can close the cover, and you're ready with the part here on the main board. The cover is on again, and the cables are installed. Next point is you have to put the top plate of the gimbal to the Vision. The problem is it's not exactly the same size, and you don't have exactly the same holes here at the China gimbal, so you have to find out a solution to fix it. I used 2 of these parts here with 2 screws. It's very simple and very easy. These are the original screws and original holes, and I fixed it like this. The good point is you can move the top plate a little bit forward and backward, so you can put it perfectly in the middle, because it's very important that the camera is not too far in the front or too far in the back, so the Vision is good balanced. Because if the Vision has too much weight on the front or on the back side, you may have problems when you start the Vision. So that's a very good thing. You can move this plate a little bit forward and backward, so it's not very good looking, but it's easy, it's very fast to install, and that's it. The electronic of the gimbal usually is here in the lower plate. I removed this one because I don't want to have the cables here at this part. I don't want to have the weight at the gimbal, because to have the gimbal jello free and shaking free, in my opinion, it's good to have not so much weight here on this plate. So I removed this one and put it here underneath the vision at the battery compartment. Power is here at this point, plus minus you have here, it's marked, so that shouldn't be the problem which one is plus and which one is minus. It's marked on the main board of the gimbal. Next point is the channel 7. Channel 7 is here at this point. You have the connectors here, and it's the one on this side. White, red, black is the color code. The problem is not every China gimbal has exactly this main board. They have different main boards, so you have to look which main board you have, but usually they are almost the same build. Some of the main boards don't have the connector here, they only have the holes. You have to put the cable in there and have to solder it, so that's quite a little bit difficult to say do it exactly like this, because you may have another main board, but in the way it's exactly the same. You also have this part here, you have the power connector here, which goes up to the main board of the vision, and that's it. These are the two connectors to the brushless gimbal motors, and this one is the connector which goes here to the to this small board, which checks the level of the gimbal. And this one, as you can see, I put under the camera at this point here. It's very easy to glue, because usually it's here on the holder of the gimbal. You only can remove it and put it here underneath the camera, so that's very easy. So that's the top plate. Next problem is to fix the camera at the gimbal motor, at the brushless motor here. I used a very simple method. I used a long screw here and put it in like this. There's a small aluminum plate to make it a little bit longer, and another way is you can remove these two ears of the vision camera and put the original part, which comes with the gimbal here, and put the original part on top, screw 4 holes here in, and then put the or drill 4 holes and put the screws here in the ears of the camera. That's another option. The problem is when you make it like this, you can't remove, or you can't go back to the original part, so you can't use the original vision gimbal part, because when you remove the ears here, that's it. You have to have it then like this here. The good part when you remove the ears is that you have a little bit more space up. So in the rollway, you are not limited here. As I said before, you're limited here at this part. When you remove the ears and you come a little bit lower, and so you won't have the problem here with the ears. So that's up to you. If you want to have the way back, then make it like this, or find another option or another way. But if you don't want to have the way back, you can use the original part, remove the ears, and that's it. Yeah, so these are the 3 parts: the top plate, the electronic, and the connection camera to the gimbal. the main important, the most important thing here is that it's absolutely fixed, that it's not shaking, not soft, it's not out of plastic or something like this. It has to be a very stable connection to the gimbal part, so the camera won't shake in herself. So that's very important. I put here a little bit of plastic in, which fix it a little bit better. So that's very important that you have the connection between the gimbal motor and the camera. It's not allowed to shake, only a little bit, because that causes the problem of jitter, of jello and shaking the camera. The Wi-Fi antenna on this side is a little bit covered here from the holder. The Wi-Fi antenna on this side is free. You may have a little less distance, but you can get more distance when you use the Wi-Fi repeater, as I showed in the videos before. So put the Wi-Fi repeater on the remote of the remote control, on top of the Wi-Fi repeater, which is built in, and then you have a little bit more distance. And even with this construction, where one of the antennas is covered, I have like 350-400 meters of the first person view on the iPad. So in my opinion, that's absolutely enough. If you want to have a little bit more, you can move out one of the antenna, this antenna here on this side. You can move out the antenna and use a spare cable, which goes here at this point out of the camera, and you put an extra antenna here on the landing gear, so you have an external antenna, and then you have much more distance you can use. Okay, so that's the construction of the gimbal and the connection camera to gimbal. Okay, so the bottom plate or the top plate is installed, the electronic is installed, the camera is at the gimbal. Next point is you have to put the gimbal on the top plate, and therefore I remove the camera cable, and here we are. So, and now the next problem is you have to get the dampers here, the top of the dampers, through this small hole here. And I show you a trick how you can do this very easy and very fast. Is take a cable or a cord or something like that, put it to the hole, and then put the end of the cable here around the top of the damper. It's a little bit difficult, so put it around the damper, and then put the gimbal here on top, and you pull. I can show you on this side, it's a little bit easier, and then you pull the cable through the hole, and that's it. Perfect. And this you do 4 times, and then you have the gimbal installed under the vision. Yeah, and then the next point, you may check if you have some dampers like this, or if you have stuff like this. In the first part, I would try only to work with these 4 original dampers, but also you can put stuff like this here under, so it gives you a little bit more stiffness, or a little bit less shaking. So it's very difficult. You have to try different settings, because usually the first setting is not perfect. You have to try different settings before you get the perfect or the most perfect setting. As I said before, it's not usually you have some situations where you have not jello, but where you have a little bit shaking, even if it's windy or stuff like this. So it's a custom-made construction, and the custom-made construction has limits, but you can get better and better if you take your time, and if you make the construction more perfect over the time. So next point is, after I have installed the gimbal under the camera, under the vision, is to calibrate it with the computer and with a special software, and that's the next step I will show you. So everything is installed, the gimbal is on the vision, and now we have to connect the main board of the gimbal with an USB cable. This comes here in. There's a USB connector, and you have to connect the USB cable to your computer. It doesn't matter if you have a Windows or if you have a Macintosh, that doesn't matter. When you have connected both, you need the special software, because you have to calibrate the gimbal and you have to calibrate the hardware. You get the software in the internet. I can show you where it is. First of all, I want to show you, this is the gimbal I use in Germany. It's about 70 bucks. I think in US and worldwide it's almost the same price. So this is the gimbal I use, and you have to download the software or the firmware to calibrate the gimbal from Basecam Electronics, and there you have to use the version 2.2b2. That's this one, 2.2b2, because the newer one won't work with this main board of the gimbals. And the next thing you need is a USB to UART bridge, because this one works on Java, and you have to have a connection from this one to your USB connector, and therefore there's a small tool which called USB to UART bridge VCP drivers, and you get this one also for Windows and for Macintosh. And so these are the two parts you need to connect the main board of the gimbal with your computer. So let's start the software for the gimbal. Here we are. It's Java software, and here it is. And now we have to use connect, and that's it. So here are the values you have, and you see here is roll, and when I move the camera a little bit, you see the roll gets out of the middle position, and exactly the same is for pitch. You see it's also exactly the same. When you have installed everything, the first thing you have to do is you have to calibrate the small part here under the camera. It's called EMU, and this part you have to calibrate, and therefore you have to put the camera exactly leveled. I don't know, I've used a book or something else, and put the vision on a table and put the book underneath the camera, and hold the camera very firm on this book, absolutely leveled and absolutely perfect straight, and you have to hold it very firm, because it's not allowed that it shakes or anything else. And when you have it absolutely leveled, you have to use the ACC calibration and the calibration gyro. Press both one after the other, and then you have to write it to the main board, and that's it. Okay, I can change the language, that's a little bit easier. Application should be start. Yes, that's what we kind of do. So you have the English version here also. Here we are with the English version, connect. And it's absolutely important, don't forget to write the values you've have in the calibration. Some of the users make the calibration and they don't write it back, and so they wonder why it won't work. Next point is the power. That's this part here. Press auto first, and then you have the roll power and you have the pitch power. And these values you have to increase slowly. I can show you what happens if you go to a real low pitch value. We have 125 here. I go to a pitch value like 40 and write this one. And what happens is that the camera, when I make this one here, it's not stable. You see the camera is shaking like this and shaking like this, so the power is not high enough to hold the camera in level. And that's the reason why you have to increase this value. You can go up by steps of 10, and then you will see how it works. And you have to try in between if the power is high enough. Don't go too high with the power. I go back to 125 because this is the value I find out that it's real good for the camera here and for this gimbal. Don't go too high with the power, because if you go too high with the power, the brushless gimbal motors take the power from the battery of the Phantom. And if the power of the gimbal, of the brushless gimbal motors is too high, you need too much power, and you shorten your flight time. So you should use a good value, but not a too high value, because the power consumption then is too high. So try it very careful to hit the perfect value. Start with a little bit less, try to fly, and then you will see if you have to go up a little bit more. If you have a laptop like me, you can use this one in the field outside, and you can increase or decrease the value on the field during your flight. So that's very easy to check, and that's very easy to work in the field outside. So these are the values: power for roll and pitch. If you use a too low power value in the roll level, you will see when you shake like this that the camera falls to the left side or to the right side. So that's the roll value. Next is PID. These are the PID values, and to explain how the PID values work, I have here a PDF document where they explain, and I will post it also on my internet site, where they explain the differences between the PID parameters. P describes the power of disturbance response. Higher values mean a stronger response reaction to external disturbance. Raise this value until the stabilization quality, fast disturbance will be adequate. If you go too high with this value, the gimbal will start shaking like this, because even if there is almost no disturbance, the gimbal will try to calibrate the roll axis, and so you get a little bit shaking. So the power value is not good if you use the power value too high. The D value reduces the reaction speed. So the reaction speed, you can have a reaction speed in the roll axis. A reaction speed in the roll axis should be a little bit higher than the reaction speed in the other axis. That's what I use, because I want the roll axis always absolutely leveled, and I want fast reaction in the roll axis. But in the other axis I want it a little bit slower, a little bit smoother, because when I start flying it should go like this, it shouldn't flip, it should go a little bit smoother, and that is the reason why the reaction in this direction for me is a little bit slower. The I value changed the speed at which the gimbal moves the incoming RC commands, and move the gimbal back to neutral. So this is the speed, because if the speed is too high, the gimbal goes like this. So the speed should be also in an adequate value. You have to work with these values. You have to try, you have to work, you have to check out which value for your needs is perfect, because each copter pilot has different needs. One will take only photos, one will take only videos. Like me, I want to take videos and photos, so I need both of them. So try and work with these values. I will post my values I've used, so you have the option to use these values. And please don't press use default. If you press default, it goes back to the default, but you have the option that you lose your mainboard or you lose your connection or stuff like that. There were so many pilots who press use defaults, and they're really unhappy. So don't do this. Write down or make screenshots or something like this when you start first time with this calibration, but please don't press use default. So first of all, calibration, next motor power, and third one PID controller. These are the three levels to put the right values into your mainboard. Next part is advanced. Here is nothing real important for you. Then you have the RC settings, and here is one important point, that's the pitch. Because if you have the channel 7 modification on your Phantom remote control, you know, the one with the potentiometer to pitch the camera, here you have the top value and you have the maximum angle, the low value. You can work with this value with these values and try which one is best, because the problem is when you are too far down, you will see what happens. The camera will shake. So it's not a good idea to go too far down and exactly the same as up like this. So you have to have a little bit a real middle value. I will show you also the values I've used here. Follow mode is nothing important. Menu button, there's the menu button, you can use it, but I don't use this one. And you have the real-time data, and in the real-time data, I step back from the table, so you will see in the real-time data you see how the EMU works and how you get the small vibration. If it looked like this, it's absolutely perfect. You have the real perfect value because the camera is absolutely stable now. There's almost no vibration in the camera, no jello effect or something like this. And that's a real good value. And you see, when I hit on the table, you immediately see what happens. And what I said before, in the roll axis, I show you in the roll axis, it's quite stable. But in the pitch axis, you see you have these slight curves here. And that's what I said. I want not a real fast correction of the pitch axis. I want a little bit smoother, and that's what you can see here. You see it goes up and down, and it takes a little bit time to make the correction, but not in the roll axis. The roll axis is real fast, and that's what I need, because in the roll axis I want the leveled horizon, and I want the leveled horizon all the time. So that's the reason why the reaction time in the roll axis is a little bit faster than in the pitch axis. But as I said before, that's up to you. You have to deal with your values, and you have to try your own values. Okay. So this is the calibration and the installation of the firmware. If you are right now done, and if everything is fixed and everything is stable, next point is we go out to the field and I show you how you can check the vibrations and how you can find out where the vibrations are coming from, and where you can do a little bit more to remove jello or shaking effects of the gimbal. One last thing, I've installed the longer landing gear. You see they're a little bit wider and they're a little bit longer, because when you use the normal landing gear, the camera will sit on the bottom of the field or of the street, or where you start your vision. So you have to use the longer legs, or you have to put distance pieces here into the usual landing gear to get it a little bit longer. You have to remove the compass here, you have to put the compass a little bit higher, but that's not the problem, because you have to make a compass calibration, and with a compass calibration everything is fine. The most important point is that the compass is absolutely horizontal and not in the curve of the landing gear, but that's no problem. The cable is long enough so you can pull it a little bit out and get in the straight area of the landing gear, so that's absolutely no problem. Okay, so everything is done and you're ready for your first flight. Let's go out to the field and meet you there, and I'll show you how to get the last part and how to get some joy in flying with your new gimbal. So I hope everything worked fine with your gimbal. You have installed the gimbal, the electrician is on, and the gimbal should work like this. But now comes the most important part to get the whole thing free from vibration and jello. The problem is there's only one way to check this, that's in the flight. So there's no option that you can do it in your office or put the vision on a table and let them run. You have to do this in air, and that's extremely dangerous because of the propellers. They are real sharp and you don't have to get them in your eyes, because you will get serious injuries. So be very, it's very dangerous. It's better to take glasses, security glasses, and you should do this only on a day without any wind, so the vision stays absolutely perfect in the air. Don't do it if you have wind, or look for a sheltered place where you're a little bit hidden from wind, because the vision has to stay just in front of your head, so you can feel and touch the different parts of the vision to feel if there are any vibration. Okay, so let's start the vision and I show you where the points are to check if you feel a vibration, and then you have to go with different rubbers or different stuff to get it free from vibration. Okay, the first point, so be very careful. The first point is here under the arms. So there should be no vibration or less vibration, otherwise you should take new propellers. Next point is here at the legs. They don't shake, they should shake, they should stay almost free of vibration. And the last point is here under the gimbal, the camera, and at least here you should have absolutely no vibration. The camera should stay absolutely still. So if you feel the gimbal should stay absolutely free from vibration. The legs and the arms, these are the most important points where you should check if you are free from vibration. But please be very careful, that's very dangerous because of the propellers. But if there's no wind, you can check this very good and feel if you don't have vibrations here, and especially in the camera. The camera should stay absolutely still and there should be no vibrations. So that was the last step of installing your gimbal, the check in the air for vibration. Again, please be very careful. It's better to take security glasses, and again do it only if you have no wind and you're a little bit experienced in flying the vision. When you find out where are the vibrations, you have to look first for new propellers. That's very important. The propellers have to be new because they mostly in the most cases, they are responsible for the vibrations. And the second point are the rubber parts between the top plate and the bottom plate of the gimbal. There you can choose different rubbers which are a little bit softer or a little bit harder. You can use any stuff in between, from foam to stuff like this. So you have to try this, and believe me, it takes a time to get it vibration and jello free. But there's a way to get it, and that's the way it is. And when you're ready, you have a real nice vision with a real nice gimbal, and so you don't have to buy the Plus, because this one also works very perfect and very fine for me. That's it with the installation of the China 2D gimbal. Hope you enjoyed it a little bit. It's a very long video, but there's a lot to explain. If you like it, give me a like here under the video and subscribe my channel. I will have the internet address of my homepage, and there are some more information, especially of the settings of the gimbal software. There you can see some screenshots. They may help you a little bit. Thank you for watching me. Come back again for my next videos, and as every time I say bye bye and moin moin.